His scream hit the corridor first, a raw, ragged sound, then the thud. Admiral Riker's body slamming into the steel deck, limbs jerking, eyes wide as alarms wailed overhead. The Reaper feed spiraled into chaos, a hostile vessel erupting into fire on the screen, while the woman at the console didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even breathe wrong. Just ice. Just control. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. They say the loudest man in the room is usually the weakest, but inside a naval drone command bunker, silence carries a sharper edge than any blade. That morning, the servers hummed like a trapped hornet's nest, right up until his voice cut through it. Admiral Rick Tombstone Riker barked from the doorway. And who might you be, sweetheart? Geek Squad? Or just the coffee girl for the real shooters? The laughter that followed was ugly, quick, predatory. 8 SEALs filled the hallway, blocking the narrow artery leading to the UAV bay. Big men, loud men, men who believed in their own legend. Riker led them like a storm front, silver oak leaves catching the fluorescence as he crossed his arms over a chest built to intimidate. He didn't just stand there, he dominated the air, claiming it as his birthright. At the console sat the woman they were circling. Petite, motionless, framed by the cold glow of a $20 million MQ-9 Reaper interface. Her uniform was plain gray, stripped of anything that might reveal who she was. No name, no rank, no history. Just a pair of hands steady enough to guide a drone 30,000 feet above hostile waters. Riker stepped closer, his shadow swallowing her workstation. "I asked you a question, honey," he said, slower now, voice dipping into something theatrical. "Rank. What's on your collar? Or do they not give stripes to tech support?" She turned her head, only her head. No shift of her shoulders, no flinch, no recoil. A mechanical pivot, clean and deliberate. Her eyes, cold Atlantic blue, locked onto him with a precision that made the SEALs behind him stop grinning. For the first time in years, Admiral Riker felt something unfamiliar gather in his throat. A warning. A quiet one. Her gaze didn't blink. Didn't waver. And somewhere deep in the primitive part of his brain, something whispered. Wrong target. Riker's roar hit first, loud, frantic, desperate. Then the crash. Consoles toppled, steel shrieked, and in the center of the chaos stood the woman, calm as winter, hands behind her back, while alarms flashed blood red across the control bay. Every SEAL froze. Even Riker stopped breathing. Because in that moment, they finally understood who she really was. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. His ego crushed the warning rising in his throat. So when she answered him, her voice soft and surgical, it cut deeper than any blade. She said, "Higher than yours, Commander. You just don't know it yet." Silence detonated through the hallway. A throat cleared. A boot squeaked on tile, sharp, nervous, loud in all the wrong ways. Riker laughed. A showman's laugh, big and booming, meant to tell his men the danger had passed. They joined in, jittery at first, then louder, eager to follow the alpha. Riker sneered, leaning his full weight against the doorway. "Cute, real cute. Maybe I'll get you a uniform after you finish polishing my boots." She didn't react. She simply breathed. Inhale for 4, hold. Exhale for 4, hold. Box breathing, the kind snipers use before they squeeze a trigger. Slow, controlled, deadly. In the corner, Master Chief Pops Garrett looked up from his maintenance log. 62 years old, skin weathered like an old saddle, eyes sharp from decades of war. He watched her, really watched her. And what he saw, it chilled him. Her grip on the rugged tablet wasn't casual. It wasn't administrative. 3 fingers braced the back, thumb and index locked the edge. A perfect C-clamp, a tactical grip. The way you carry a detonator when running through gunfire. Garrett's pen stopped mid-stroke. The hair on his arms lifted. He whispered to himself, "Who the hell is she?" At her station, she saved her work. 3 keystrokes. Tap, tap, tap. So fast and clean it barely looked human. The Reaper's encryption changed every single day. A 64-bit nightmare that took intel officers 5 minutes, minimum. She tore through it in 8 seconds. No cheat sheet, no pause, no mercy. Riker pushed off the doorframe, refusing to let the moment die. He stepped into the control room, his shadow swallowing her console. "I think someone screwed up letting the IT department in here," he said, louder now. "This is a Tier 1 facility, SEAL eyes only." She rose. The movement was liquid steel, smooth, absolute. And when her hands slipped behind her back, they didn't hang loose. They locked into parade rest with drill instructor precision. The room shifted. The air tightened. Something ancient in every man present whispered the truth. They were not the predators in this room. They were the prey. Riker's voice cracked into a scream. High, panicked, nothing like the swagger he lived on. The woman stood over him, calm, unblinking, while MPs stormed the hallway and every SEAL in the room backed away like they'd just seen a ghost climb out of its grave. Her sleeve was torn, the scar exposed, bright against the cold fluorescent light. And in that moment, every man finally understood the truth he should have seen from the start. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Riker purred the threat, loving the sound of his own authority. I'll make this simple. You've got 30 seconds to explain why a civilian contractor is finger painting on my tactical systems before I call the MPs and have you dragged out. From the back, Lieutenant Hayes chirped. 28 seconds. Young, blonde, hungry for approval. She reached into her chest pocket. Riker's hand twitched toward his hip, a reflex, sharp and stupid. But she didn't draw a weapon. She pulled out a laminated ID on a plain lanyard. Her voice stayed flat. Technical consultant, cleared for non-combat systems maintenance. Riker snatched the card, lifting it toward the harsh ceiling lights. He checked everything: hologram, expiration, serial coding. All perfect, too perfect. Miss Consultant, he said, flicking the card at her. It hit her sternum, fell to the floor, echoed on tile. She didn't flinch. He leaned in, breath hot, ego hotter. I don't care what that plastic says. You stay in your lane. You don't touch tactical ops. You don't look at classified files. You fix the Wi-Fi, and you stay out of the way when the real warfighters are working. Do we have an understanding? She answered, steady. Understood, sir. She knelt to retrieve the ID. Her gray sleeve slipped up. Just a few inches. But enough. Quiet, sharp-eyed, saw it first. A jagged scar, deep and messy, carved by shrapnel hotter than the desert sun. Not a surgical line, not an accident. He had seen scars like that in Fallujah. He had seen them in burn wards in Germany. Scars from a blast wave that kills everyone except the person too stubborn or too lethal to die. His breath caught. But Riker didn't notice. He was already turning away, pride swelling back into his stride. Let's go, ladies. Briefing in 15. Leave the help to her coloring books. The woman rose slowly, scar hidden again, eyes steady, breath calm. And Klein felt it hit him like a gut punch, the first spark of a truth that would soon burn this entire command to the ground. Riker's scream tore through the command bay first, a raw, cracking sound, followed by the thunder of lockdown doors slamming shut. The woman stood alone at the console, face lit by a wall of classified files she should never have accessed, fingers still moving, still typing. Outside, SEALs pounded on steel that would not open. Inside, Master Chief Garrett finally understood the truth. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. The SEALs marched out, their laughter trailing behind them like exhaust fumes drifting down a hot highway. Garrett watched their broad backs disappear, then turned to the woman. She rose, slipping her ID into her pocket. No anger, no humiliation, just patience. A dangerous kind. The steel door sealed shut with a heavy click. She sat again, but she didn't return to diagnostics. Instead, she opened a new command window, a black screen, a single blinking green cursor. Her fingers moved. One word appeared, override. Garrett's breath slowed as the monitor exploded with data. Not maintenance reports, personnel files, live biometric feeds. Commander Riker's record appeared first. Service history, psychological evaluations, home address. Then something else, something wrong. A red folder labeled Project Silencer. His throat tightened. She hadn't come to fix drones. She had come to hunt the men flying them. She spoke softly, still typing. You might want to take a walk, Master Chief. It's going to get very loud in here. But he didn't move. 40 years of Navy steel weighed down his boots. He stood rooted to the deck, staring at the sealed door, the laughter fading behind it like a dying engine. Before the lock fully engaged, Lieutenant Hayes poked his head back in. Young, blonde, eager to please. His grin was wide, empty. Hayes said, "Don't worry, sweetheart. If the computer stuff gets too hard, laundry's hiring. They love a girl who can scrub." Then silence swallowed the room. The air shifted, depressurized, vents rattling like a machine gasping its last breath. Outside the plexiglass, the Hawaiian sun climbed higher, turning the Pacific into a blinding plate of liquid metal. Garrett stood in the corner, shoulders broad, face carved from worry. He held his maintenance log like a shield, but his eyes stayed fixed on her. Unmoving, unblinking, waiting for whatever storm she was about to unleash. Riker's scream hit the reinforced walls like a bomb blast. Sharp, panicked, impossible to ignore. The woman didn't turn, didn't blink. She just kept typing, each keystroke detonating another classified lock as MPs sprinted toward the bay. Behind her, Garrett stood frozen, realizing far too late that this wasn't a technician. This was a weapon the Navy never meant to unleash. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. She didn't react to Hayes' insult. Not a twitch, not a spike in her pulse. Just the steady blue glow of the monitors, washing over her as her hands moved with that eerie, surgical rhythm. Garrett broke the silence, his voice rough as gravel. "You been at it long?" She kept typing. The clack, clack, clack hit the air like distant gunfire. "Long enough, Master Chief." He stiffened. She hadn't looked at his collar, hadn't looked at his sleeve. She just knew. That alone made his hands tighten around the logbook. He stepped closer, knees popping, old battle damage protesting another long day. He tapped his pen against the binder, slow, deliberate, each tap a warning. "Those encryption protocols you just bypassed," Garrett said, keeping his voice low. "They usually take a hell of a lot of authentication. Manuals, key cards, a call to Cyber Command. Most operators need 15 minutes just to get a handshake from the satellite." Her fingers stopped. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut skin. "I've worked with similar systems," she said, tone flat, neutral, emotionless. Garrett nodded once. "Similar. That's one way to put it." She finally turned toward him. The blue light carved shadows across her cheekbones, making her look less like a technician and more like a verdict waiting to fall. Behind her winter-cold eyes, he could see the assessment happening in real time. Is he a liability? Is he an obstacle? Does he need to be removed? Her voice was calm. "Is there something I can help you with, Master Chief? Or are you just curious?" Garrett closed the logbook with a sharp snap. The sound echoed. "I've been in this Navy 43 years, miss. I was pulling guys out of the Mekong before Riker was even a glint in his daddy's eye. I've seen every type walk through secure doors, specialists with clearances they bought, contractors who know just enough to be dangerous." He took a breath, heavy, steady. "But I've never seen anyone like you." Riker's scream echoed through the mess hall, a jagged animal sound. Right before the overhead lights blew out and the lockdown shutters slammed down like guillotines. Officers dove for cover. Trays hit the floor. And 3 miles away in the drone bay, the woman finally pressed the hidden button on her watch, the dead man's trigger that would change everything. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Garrett stepped toward the door, hand hovering over the release bar, then paused. He looked back at her, eyes narrowing beneath thick gray brows. He said, "And I've seen operators, the real kind, the ones who don't have names, the ones who don't exist on paper." She didn't answer. She didn't even turn. Her spine stayed straight as a rifle barrel. Garrett's whisper cut the air. "That breathing pattern, 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. That's not yoga. That's combat stress regulation. They teach that at Bragg. They teach that at the farm. They teach that in places where failure means a closed casket funeral." He waited for a reaction, a denial, a laugh, even a shrug. Nothing, just silence. He exhaled, voice soft. "You have a good day, miss." He pushed open the steel door and stepped out, carrying the weight of what he now understood. The door clicked behind him, sealing her inside with secrets sharp enough to cut through the entire base. Alone, her left hand drifted to her wrist. She slid her cuff back an inch. A matte black watch stared up at her, glowing red Zulu time ticking quietly, but she wasn't checking the hour. Her thumb brushed a recessed button along the casing, one no civilian model had, one the Navy didn't know existed. A dead man's trigger. A panic beacon that didn't report to the Pentagon or the president. She breathed, quiet as ash. Not yet. Not just yet. 3 miles away, in the officers' mess, the air simmered with a different kind of poison. Bacon grease, burnt coffee, and unchecked ego. Commander Riker sat at the center of the power table, basking in the warm glow of his own mythology. He stabbed a cube of cantaloupe, waving the fork like a scepter as he retold his morning triumph. Riker boomed. "So I walk in, and there's this little thing, maybe 5 foot nothing, tapping on the Reaper feed like she's playing damn Minecraft." Laughter erupted. He soaked it in. Clueless, utterly clueless about the storm already moving toward him. Riker's scream ripped through the officer's mess like a live wire. Trays crashed. coffee spilled, and above the chaos, a single gunmetal word crackled through a secure channel. A word he never heard, but somehow felt. Acquired. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. The power table erupted. Hayes, cheeks stuffed with scrambled eggs, nearly spit them out. "She looked like she got lost on her way to a PTA meeting, sir," Riker grinned, swallowing his cantaloupe like it was victory itself. "Exactly. I had to explain the facts of life to her. Told her to stay in her lane. You let these contractors get comfortable. Next thing you know, they think they're part of the team. They think they matter." Hayes jumped in, eager to please. "She won't last the week. They never do. They see how the sausage is made, and they run back to their cozy cubicles where the biggest threat is a paper cut." The table roared. Except for Commander Brooks. The head of security sat at the edge, watching his black coffee swirl into a dark spiral. Older, sharper. Too experienced to find any of this funny. He'd seen men like Riker before, loud, reckless peacocks who confused volume with skill. Brooks asked quietly, "You check her credentials, Rick?" Riker groaned. "Of course I checked her credentials. Laminated card, holographic seal, official as hell. She's a fixer, a glorified Geek Squad tech here to update firmware." Brooks didn't lift his eyes. Maybe, but the manifest this morning didn't list any external UAV maintenance, not until next month. Riker stood, tray in hand. "Relax, Brooks. You're seeing ghosts. This is a drone base, not a Tom Clancy novel. She's nobody." He strutted toward the exit, acolytes following like ducklings, laughter trailing behind them. But 3 miles away, in the darkened control room, the nobody was working. The monitor in front of her flashed red. Project silencer loaded in full. Not a maintenance log. Not even close. It was a targeting list. The first name wasn't linked to foreign soil. It wasn't tied to insurgents or cartels. A photo loaded, high resolution, cold, clinical. Commander Rick Riker, framed through a long-range scope. She lifted her headset, adjusting it with one precise motion. Her voice dropped to a whisper colder than winter steel. Acquired. The word dissolved into the server hum, swallowed whole before it could reach human ears. But at the officer's mess, Commander Brooks paused mid-sip, skin prickling. Something unseen had shifted. Something lethal. Something moving straight toward Commander Rick Riker. Riker's scream shattered the mess hall just as Brooks's phone vibrated with a single incoming message. A classified alert stamped in red, the kind that only appears when a covert operator has been misidentified on a US base. Officers ducked, forks clattered, and Brooks felt the bottom drop out of his world as one sentence glowed on his screen. Target lock confirmed. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Brooks asked quietly, voice cutting beneath the clatter of plates, "Does this consultant actually have a backstory that holds water, Rick? Or did she just walk in off the street wearing a gray polo?" Riker waved him off, lazy and arrogant. "Relax, Brooks. Everything's in order. Pentagon's a mess these days. Some bureaucrat in DC pockets a kickback, and suddenly we've got civilians wandering secure facilities like they own the place. It's procurement nonsense." Brooks didn't blink. Didn't sip his coffee. His gut twisted, the same deep, biological warning he felt in Kabul right before an ambush. Access to UAV flight controls isn't something we hand out like party favors. I don't care who signed the paperwork. Riker smirked, loving the friction. "Be my guest. Play detective. You'll find everything is technically legal, which is exactly the damn problem with this country. Too many lawyers, not enough warriors." He switched subjects instantly, bored. Launched into bragging about Operation Iron Tide, a 3-day joint exercise with the Rangers. He talked kill zones, insertion points, casualty projections, all with the casual swagger of a man discussing weekend football. He never noticed the moment Brooks stood. Never noticed him slip away. Brooks moved through the mess hall like smoke, silent, already dialing before he reached the exit. Not the operator, not the base switchboard. A direct number to NCIS headquarters in DC. The kind of number you don't store in your contacts, the kind you memorize once and never write down. Stepping into the blinding Hawaiian sun, Brooks shielded his eyes, voice low. "I need a deep background check. Priority 1. Name is, essentially, Jane Doe. I need to know who she really is." The line clicked, a breath on the other end, and far behind him in the control bay, the woman typed another command that would soon make his question terrifyingly real. Riker's scream tore through the mess hall, a sound so sharp it froze every fork midair. At that same instant, in the control room 3 miles away, a single red line of code flashed across her monitor like a sniper's laser sight. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing, breath steady. The hunter had finally found movement in the web. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Inside the chilled twilight of the drone control bay, she worked like a surgeon. Calm hands, steady pulse. The screens around her displayed nothing but the dull heartbeat of the base. File logs, performance metrics, the harmless drudgery of someone earning an hourly wage. On the surface, she was invisible. Underneath, she was lethal. Hidden in the network's sublayers, she hunted quietly, tracing metadata across servers, tracking data packets slipping out of the base at odd hours. Each one a footprint, each one a clue. 3 months earlier, at the Defense Intelligence Agency, her handlers had given her a simple directive, 3 words that carried the weight of a death sentence. Infiltrate, identify, burn it down. Someone at this base, this fortress of American power, had been selling classified tactical data to private military contractors operating in the shadow zones of Africa and Eastern Europe. And not scraps, not frequencies or weather logs. They were selling the playbook, troop movements, drone blind spots, response times. American lives packaged and sold like bulk ammunition. Whoever was behind it was brilliant, precise, untouchable. The leaks were timed to maximize casualties and hide the trail. That kind of access required clearance far above her pay grade. The obvious suspect was Riker. He had the ego, the access, the God complex. He was loud enough to hide a crime behind sheer noise. He fit the profile. But 3 months of tracking him had taught her something vital. Obvious is a trap. Riker might be a bully, a narcissist, a man who believed rules were for little people, but was he a traitor? Or just a convenient distraction? She breathed slowly, controlled, shallow, watching the digital river glide across her screen. She waited for the anomaly. Then, blink, a flicker, a single line of code shifted red. Someone was accessing a file she had tagged with a silent alarm. Not a tactical file, not weapons data, an equipment requisition log for a training mission 6 weeks old. Spare parts, fuel manifests, MRE counts, boring on the surface. Except that same file had been accessed twice in the last 48 hours by a user with zero reason, zero clearance, to touch logistics. She didn't block it. She didn't flag it. A technician reacts. A hunter watches. She let the intruder keep eating, tracing the IP, mapping the behavior, weaving another thread into the web, tightening around the real traitor. And in the quiet hum of the control room, she felt it. The web was starting to vibrate. Riker's scream hit the base like a shockwave, a howl swallowed by slamming steel as the drone bay locked down. Inside, Hayes pounded on the door, begging to be let out, while the woman walked away without looking back, her posture tall, precise, unbreakable. The trap she had laid was already tightening around him. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. The heavy steel door groaned open behind her. The air shifted instantly. Cheap cologne, loud confidence, and the brittle ego of a man who had never been told no. Lieutenant Hayes strolled in, trying for casual, failing hard. His lean against the doorframe looked more like a threat than a pose. Hayes said, "Hey, miss." He didn't know her name, never cared to. To him, she wasn't a person, she was scenery. "The Admiral wants the room cleared," Hayes continued, voice bouncing off cold metal. "You're not authorized for this terminal during operational hours. Gonna need you to log off." Her eyes stayed on the screen. "I'm running a level 3 system diagnostic. If I stop now, the encryption keys will reset. I need 20 minutes. Hayes stepped closer, hand flicking in a lazy shooing gesture. "Yeah, well, operational hours started at 0600, so I'm gonna need that to happen now." He smiled, a thin, mean slice of satisfaction. This was a story he would retell at lunch. A civilian put in her place, a tiny hit of dopamine to fuel his day. She paused. She could crush him, pull rank he didn't even know existed, recite the federal statute that superseded his entire chain of command. But ego wasn't the mission. Survival was. The long game was. She said softly, "Understood." She saved her work, sealing the digital trap she had just constructed, and logged out, quiet, controlled, precise. Gathering her rugged tablet and the canvas technician's bag, she stood and smoothed her gray uniform, the perfect picture of compliance. As she passed him, eyes down, Hayes muttered, "Don't trip on your way out." She didn't answer. The door closed behind her with a heavy final click, and the second she stepped into the hallway, the act evaporated. Her shoulders rolled back, her spine straightened, her stride sharpened into something purposeful, something dangerous. The hunted civilian was gone. The hunter had returned. Hayes' scream came much later, high, panicked, tearing down the concrete hallway as steel shutters slammed and the server room lit up with alarms. He clawed at the locked door, begging someone to open it, but no one did. Behind him, the trap she'd planted detonated in digital silence, and the last thing he remembered was realizing she had never been running away. She'd been circling. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Hayes thought he had won. Thought he'd kicked her out of the nerve center. He was wrong. All he'd done was force her into Plan B, the contingency designed for when idiots with badges got in the way. If Hayes had known what sat inside that small canvas bag she carried, he wouldn't have smirked. He would have called 911. She turned the corner, not toward the exit, but deeper into the building, toward the humming heart of the base. She whispered, 20 minutes. That's all I need. Back inside the control bay, Hayes leaned against the console she'd vacated, blocking the door, chest puffed out, needing an audience. Hayes began, "You know what your problem is?" He crossed his arms, muscles flexing just enough, voice rising so the whole room could hear. "You civilians don't get hierarchy. You don't know what it means to earn a seat at the table. We train for years. We bleed. We prove ourselves in the mud while you're off getting liberal arts degrees. Then you walk in here with a laminated card and think that buys you the same access? The same respect?" She paused at the heavy steel door. Her hand hovered over the handle. The air went still. Every man in the room waited for the blow-up. The angry retort, the regulation quote, the righteous indignation. Instead, she turned slowly. Her face was blank. A clean slate. No fury. No shame. Nothing Hayes understood. "You're right, Lieutenant," she said, voice soft and lethal. "I don't understand that at all." The line hit Hayes like a malfunctioning round exploding in the chamber. His bravado evaporated. His rhythm collapsed. He blinked, suddenly unarmed, suddenly very small. He muttered, "Just stay out of our way," though even he didn't believe it. She opened the door and walked out, calm, steady, leaving him standing in the vacuum she created. Hayes felt the eyes of his platoon burning into him. He needed to regain control. He pulled out his phone, his thumb flying across the screen as he opened the dark channel, the encrypted group chat every junior SEAL used and every officer pretended didn't exist. Hayes typed, "Guys." The tombstone just absolutely castrated the new contractor girl. She tried to step to him, and he shut her down. Hard. Another message, "But she's got this attitude, like she's royalty in a gray polo, walks around like she owns the place." Responses exploded instantly, blue bubbles rolling in, cruel and fast, turning her into a punchline before her footsteps even faded from the hall. They didn't know what she was really doing. They didn't know who she really was. And in 20 minutes, they would. Riker's scream cracked through the barracks hallway at 1342, a broken animal sound, just as her encrypted data burst uplinked to a satellite far outside Navy jurisdiction. 3 seconds later, every server on base buckled. Hayes' group chat froze. The dark channel died, and 300 sailors felt the air shift into something cold and predatory. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. The dark channel exploded first. Tex wrote, "Betting pool starts now. Over-under is 72 hours. Miller added, "Make her the coffee girl. If she wants to be on the team, she can serve the team." Vegas chimed in, "Does she even know which end of the gun goes bang?" By noon, the wildfire was unstoppable. The story mutated, as rumors always do. She wasn't a technician anymore. She was the delusional civilian who tried to pull rank on an admiral. A punchline. A mascot for mockery. The enlisted dining facility roared with noise, heat, and the greasy perfume of mass-produced cheeseburgers. Bleach, floor wax, burnt onions. 300 sailors decompressing at once. She sat alone at a wobbly metal table in the corner, dissecting a sandwich that tasted like cardboard in resignation. She didn't scroll her phone, didn't hide. She listened. Voices crashed around her. Going wheels up at 0400, heard the COs on the warpath. Riker wants a live fire drill. She absorbed everything. Tone, cadence, power dynamics. Mapping the unwritten architecture of the base, the currents of influence beneath the rank insignias. Klein entered with his maintenance crew. He spotted her, today's designated chew toy, and leaned into his petty officer's ear. He whispered, They laughed. Loud. Cruel. Cutting. Her jaw tightened, the bread turned to paste on her tongue. Isolation pressed against her ribs like a vice. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. Hold. Regulation. Control. Discipline. She had done this submerged in freezing water during Siri. She had done this while an interrogator screamed in her face at the farm. A few petty egos in camouflage were not going to break her. She checked her watch. 13:37 hours. She had 23 minutes. Officially, her 1400 appointment was a routine check-in with Commander Walsh about firewall patches. Unofficially, it was her dead drop. Her only window to smuggle 3 months of intelligence up the chain without tripping a single digital alarm. She stood up slowly. The cafeteria noise swallowed her departure, unaware that in less than an hour, this quiet woman eating a cardboard sandwich would pull the first thread that would unravel the entire Pacific Command. Riker's scream tore through the building at 14:18, sharp, panicked, echoing down the stairwell. At that exact moment, in Walsh's office, a single progress bar hit 100%. Her upload completed, her dead drop delivered. And 6 minutes after she'd sat in his chair, the evidence that would burn this base to the ground was already off-site, out of reach, unstoppable. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. She cleared her tray, rose from the table, and stepped into the brutal Hawaiian afternoon. The heat hit her like a physical weight. Not desert heat. This was a wet, suffocating blanket that glued her uniform to her spine. The tarmac rippled like a hallucination. The IT directorate sat ahead of her, a Cold War concrete relic built to survive nuclear hellfire, yet losing a daily battle to humidity and mold. Inside, the air conditioning wheezed like a dying animal. Commander Walsh's office was on the second floor. She knocked on the frosted glass. Walsh called, "Come in." He looked 45, but carried the exhaustion of a man 20 years older. Competent, overworked, blinking through screens that were quietly killing his eyesight, and completely unaware that the woman standing in his doorway had a clearance level crafted in rooms he'd never be allowed to imagine. "Good, right on time," Walsh said, waving toward a chair buried under manuals. "Just dump those on the floor. Firewall updates. Cyber Command's new protocols are a nightmare." She sat, pulled out her tablet, and for 10 long minutes, they spoke in the dull, mechanical tongue of network administration. Packet loss, vendor compatibility, encryption keys, a verbal sedative. Walsh rubbed his eyes, groaning. "God, I'm fading. I need caffeine. I'm gonna grab coffee. You want anything?" She answered softly. "I'm fine. Thank you, sir." He nodded and shuffled out. The door clicked shut. Her internal timer started instantly. Walsh always took the stairs, 2 floors, 40 seconds down. The machine brewed in 45 seconds. He stirred in 10. He checked the bulletin board on the walk back. She had timed it 3 times. She had exactly 6 minutes. She moved. Sliding into his chair, she found his computer still logged in, careless, predictable. She navigated through directories like a pianist racing a crescendo. C drive, users, admin, shared, logs, legacy. There, buried 3 layers deep, a folder that looked like digital trash to anyone without training. She connected her tablet, uploading. On the surface, it looked like nothing. A corrupted system error log, a routine glitch that any IT tech would ignore. But inside the camouflage, she had embedded everything. Riker's biometric data, the flight logs, the project silencer override, the pattern of betrayal woven through the base, a diamond hidden inside a pile of coal. The progress bar crawled upward, silent and lethal. 5 minutes, 5.5, 6. Upload complete. And somewhere below, footsteps echoed on the stairs. Walsh returning, coffee in hand, blissfully unaware that while he was stirring sugar into a styrofoam cup, she had just detonated the quietest bomb in naval history. Riker's scream hit the courtyard like a flare, sharp, furious, echoing off concrete, just as her encrypted packet touched down on a desk in Fort Meade. A 4-star general leaned forward, reading intel that could trigger hearings, raids, maybe even a war. And 3,000 miles away, under the Hawaiian sun, she stared at a blinking alert that told her the truth. Riker knew. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Upload complete. She yanked the cable, deleted the local history, wiped the recent files cache. Then she slid back into her chair, tablet resting on her lap, posture calm, heartbeat steady. 5 minutes, 40 seconds. At 6 minutes, 15, the door handle turned. Walsh stepped in, 2 styrofoam cups in hand, looking every bit the exhausted man trying to outrun his own inbox. "Changed my mind," he said with a tired smile. "Figured you could use it. It's going to be a long afternoon." She accepted the cup. "Thank you, Commander." She took a sip. Burnt, acrid. Coffee that tasted like it had been strained through a gym sock. She didn't flinch. "So," she said, voice smooth, "about those vendor compatibility issues." 10 more minutes. Dry technical talk. Firewall protocols. Encryption handoffs. Walsh none the wiser. She stepped out into the blinding sun with a stack of useless manuals under her arm. She dropped the coffee into a trash can without breaking stride. She had done it. The package was delivered. The trap was set. She reached for her phone to send the all clear, but the screen lit before she touched it. A notification filled the display. Not a text, not a call. A system alert. From the diagnostic tool she had installed on Walsh's machine. Alert, remote access detected. Source, internal. User, Commander R. Riker. Her blood went cold. Riker wasn't in the air. He wasn't in a briefing. He was sitting somewhere on base, watching Walsh's computer. Watching her. And he had just seen everything. The red alert blinked once, a digital heartbeat, then vanished, wiped by the same man who triggered it. He knew someone was inside the system, but he was too late. The data packet was already ghosting its way up the chain. It bounced off a low-orbit satellite, scrambled through 3 encrypted servers in Virginia, and landed silently on a mahogany desk at Fort Meade. There, in a windowless room, a man with more stars on his collar than Walsh would ever see leaned forward, reading line by line, deciding whether the information in front of him was big enough, dangerous enough, treasonous enough to start a war. Riker's scream tore across the base at 1439, raw, furious, echoing off hangars as MPs sprinted toward the IT building. At that same moment, on the baking asphalt outside, she stood perfectly still while 2 armed officers circled her like wolves. Their radios crackled, their orders changed, and the lead MP whispered a phrase no contractor should ever hear. "Target is confirmed. Hold her." But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. The fallout hit fast. The Hawaiian afternoon burned down like a furnace as she stepped out of the IT building. Before she made it 10 feet, a black SUV screeched to a stop, tires screaming across the pavement. 2 MPs stepped out, base security armbands bright against sunburned arms. They didn't ask her to halt. They simply blocked her path. The lead officer said, "Random ID verification, ma'am." Thick-necked, sweating, nervous, and very clearly acting under orders from Commander Brooks. Perfectly legal, perfectly within regulation, and perfectly targeted harassment. She answered calmly, "Of course." She stood there on melting asphalt for 20 minutes while they photographed her ID from every possible angle. They scanned her fingerprints through a mobile FBI-linked unit. A test she knew she would ace because her file had been rewritten from scratch by the CIA's technical wizards 3 years prior. The officer glanced down at his tablet. "How long have you been on base?" 3 months. "And your previous posting?" She kept her tone mild. "I'm a contractor officer. I don't have postings. I have gigs." He pushed again. "Previous contract then?" "Classified." The 2 MPs exchanged a look, that universal law enforcement stare caught between suspicion and self-preservation. Civilians who said classified were usually lying, but the ones who weren't? Pushing them could end careers. "We'll need to confirm that," the lead officer said gruffly. "Contact the number on your clearance documentation." She nodded once. "Do it," they called, and someone answered. A real voice from a real desk in Langley. A voice with enough authority to make armed security officers straighten their spines. "Yes, she is cleared. Yes, the classification is accurate. No, you are not authorized to ask further questions." The confirmation hit like a hammer. The MPs went pale. Because her cover wasn't good, it was perfect. People had died to make it perfect. And now Commander Riker, furious, exposed, cornered, knew she wasn't just some civilian contractor. She was something far more dangerous. And she was hunting someone on his base. Riker's scream would come at dawn, a raw, guttural sound echoing through the control bay as alarms blared and steel shutters dropped. She would stand in the center of it all, calm, ready, watching the traitor finally reveal himself. But right now, at 0430, she rose from her narrow bed and touched the hidden button on her matte black watch, the one she might have to press if everything went wrong. But to understand why this happened, We have to go back. By 1600 hours, she was back in her temporary quarters. The contractor housing was a grim cinderblock bunker at the edge of the airfield. A box painted institutional cream, a metal frame bed that squeaked if you breathed wrong, a desk that looked stolen from a 1960 submarine. She locked the door, checked the vents, swept the smoke detector. Only then did she sit on the edge of the thin mattress. Eyes closed, she allowed herself exactly 60 seconds of silence. No tactical breathing, no combat mindset, no mask, just a human being, exhausted by the weight of the lies she carried. Her shoulders sagged, the phantom ache in her left arm pulsed, the place where shrapnel had ripped through her years ago. 58, 59, 60. Her eyes snapped open. The mask returned. The soldier came back online. She powered up her tablet. The files she'd stolen from Walsh weren't just logs. They were a roadmap to treason, training schedules, personnel rosters, fuel shipments, response timelines. Enough intelligence to let a foreign adversary stage a Lockerbie-style attack on American soil. But she wasn't here to protect those secrets. She was here to identify the traitor selling them. The puzzle was forming, jagged and ugly. Commander Riker, obsessed with access, fueled by ego, the perfect decoy. Lieutenant Hayes, nervous, overeager, shadowing Riker like a terrified dog. Chief Warrant Officer Klein, hardware genius, too smart not to know every system weakness. Commander Brooks, security chief who preferred intimidation over investigation. Any one of them could be the leak. All of them could be involved. But suspicion doesn't hold up in a court-martial. She needed a smoking gun. And that meant one thing. She had to stop being a ghost and start being bait. Make enough noise, corner the rat. And when rats are cornered, they bite. She would be waiting. Outside her window, the Pacific sun bled into the ocean in violent streaks of orange and purple. Submarines prowled the deep. Young sailors stood watch, believing in a mission bigger than themselves. Most were honorable. Not all. Never all. She set her alarm for 0430, early enough to beat the sun, early enough to catch the skeleton crew, early enough to slip into the control room during the ghost hour, when the night shift sleepwalked and the day shift prayed for caffeine. Sleep hit her instantly, a weaponized skill. 4 hours later, the alarm dragged her back with the cold precision of a knife at the throat. She dressed in the dark, gray polo, nondescript tactical pants, quiet determination. ID card, check. Tablet, check. Lockpicking set, check. The watch. She touched the matte black timepiece on her wrist. The hidden button on its side felt cool beneath her thumb. She hadn't pressed it yet. Not yet. Riker would later swear he never touched the system, even as red sirens bathed his face and the drone feed showed a target lock he hadn't ordered. She would be the one in his chair when the truth detonated, calm as judgment itself. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Not yet, she whispered. At 0500, the base felt like another planet. Heavy humidity clung to the air, a warm fog that swallowed sound. The tarmac lay empty, just a few maintenance trucks crawling like slow beetles in the half-light. She moved through the dim corridors with purpose, quiet, fluid. She avoided the main halls, slipping instead through service routes and forgotten stairwells. The UAV control room was locked, but the keycard she'd cloned from Hayes' RFID signature 2 days earlier? Beep. Click. Perfect. Inside, the room glowed with low red tactical lighting. Shadows pooled in corners. Cooling fans whispered like distant surf. The night operator, Petty Officer Evans, sat slouched before a monitor streaming a drone's lazy orbit above Guam. "Morning," she said softly. Evans jolted so violently his headset skidded off one ear. "Jesus, morning, ma'am. You scared the hell out of me." 19, maybe. Acne scars, red eyes. A kid who signed up for college money and ended up babysitting satellites. "You're early," he stammered, glancing at the clock. "Diagnostics run cleaner with low system traffic," she murmured. "Thought I'd get ahead before the Admiral shows." Yeah, makes sense." He was already logging off, nearly sprinting from the chair. "Everything's green. One hiccup at 0300 on the uplink, but it auto-corrected. I logged it. I'll take a look. Grab breakfast, Evans." Cool. I'm out." He bolted, leaving the heavy door to swing shut behind him. She exhaled. Silence settled. Deep. Mechanical. The kind of silence where only machines breathe. But she didn't go to her usual workstation. She went to the master console, Riker's throne. She sat, the leather still warm, her fingers cracked. then descended. She dove past surface logs, sliding deeper into authentication trails, shadow directories, hidden protocols, into the digital fingerprints men leave behind when they think no one is watching. She found the hiccup Evans mentioned, 0300 hours, and her pulse tightened. It wasn't satellite drift, it wasn't bandwidth loss, it was a manual bypass, a deliberate intrusion. Someone had opened a backdoor into the drone's targeting system, a 3-second window, almost invisible. But she saw it, and in that sliver of stolen access, she recognized the unmistakable signature of a traitor. The sirens would come later, red lights strobing across the drone bay, Klein bleeding on the floor, and her watch finally whispering its silent distress call into the sky. But to understand why any of that happened, we have to go back. "Got you," she whispered. The command trace glowed on the screen like a confession. Not foreign, not offshore. The remote login pulsed from officer housing Block A. Then it resolved further, straight from the base commander's encrypted home network. Her breath chilled. It goes all the way to the top. She reached for a screenshot, and the steel door exploded open behind her. "You're an early riser, sweetheart." She spun in the chair, muscles coiled, thumb grazing the hidden trigger on her watch. For one heartbeat, she saw Riker's ghost in the doorway. But when the overhead fluorescence flickered awake, the real shape stepped forward. Chief Warrant Officer Klein, maintenance bag slung over his shoulder, no gun, just a voltage meter gripped like a warning. "System diagnostics," she said, forcing the lie through a tight throat. She didn't flinch, didn't scramble. She simply angled the monitor, just enough to bury the damning truth. Klein repeated, "System diagnostics," tasting the words like spoiled meat. He stepped closer, too close, his boots scraping the deck. "At 0500? With the door locked?" "Someone's been accessing files outside normal parameters," she murmured. "I'm checking integrity." "You're not authorized for security reviews, unauthorized personnel." "I'm not reviewing security. I'm fixing a glitch." "Looks like a review to me." He dropped his bag. Hard. The echo rolled across the room like distant thunder. Then he leaned over her shoulder. His eyes hit the code, the timestamps, the remote access trail, and finally, the destination, the Admiral's office. Everything froze. The vents exhaled softly. A server fan spun up, sharp and rising like a siren warning. "You need to log off," Klein said at last. His voice had changed, lower, darker, threaded with something he didn't want her to hear. "In a minute." "No, now." His hand drifted toward his belt, hovering inches above his radio. "One call, and the MPs can explain why digging through the Admiral's browser history is a federal offense." She didn't blink, didn't breathe. Because the next move, hers or his, would decide who walked out of that room alive. Riker's hand would slam onto her table in a few minutes, the entire dining hall holding its breath as he leaned in, smiling like a man who'd already decided someone wasn't walking out alive. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. She saved the work. Click. The digital smoking gun, treason wrapped in code, disappeared into a hidden partition on her tablet, a place that technically didn't exist. She rose slowly, smoothing the gray polo, and faced Klein. Her voice dropped to a soft, lethal calm. "Chief Klein, if someone with stars on their collar was compromising classified systems, wouldn't you want to know?" Klein's stare didn't budge. "What I want," he growled, "is for contractors to stay in their lane, and for me not to explain to Riker why some civilian is playing detective in my server room before sunrise." "Fair enough." She stepped toward the door. Klein mirrored her, blocking the path, not violent, just present. A wall of muscle and questions. "Who are you, really?" he asked, not accusing, almost begging for clarity. "Exactly who my ID says I am." "Your ID says you fix printers," he snapped. "But tech geeks don't run forensic audits. They don't stand like operators, and they don't stare me down when I threaten to call the master at arms." He leaned in, voice dropping to a razor whisper. "I've been Navy 12 years. I know normal. You aren't it. Maybe that's because normal is broken here, Chief. Or maybe you're a plant," he countered. "Industrial espionage, foreign intel, hell, even corporate sabotage. People pay big money for the kind of data you just stole." His hand tightened on his radio. "I should cuff you right now." "You should," she said, steady, unshaken, "but you won't." "Why not?" "Because some part of you knows something's wrong. You've felt it for months. Access patterns that don't track, orders from Riker that make no tactical sense." She stepped closer, her voice a quiet blade. "You notice the cracks, Chief. You're just not high enough to fix them." A muscle twitched hard in his jaw. He looked at his radio, then at her. "Get out," he whispered. She didn't hesitate. She slipped past him, uniforms brushing for a single electric second. Then the door shut behind her, sealing him alone with the truth he didn't want. By 0600, the base roared awake. Morning PT thundered across the tarmac. Engines barked to life. Jet fuel mixed with bacon grease in the thick Hawaiian air. She sat in the enlisted dining facility, hunched over a bowl of oatmeal the color of wet cement. Exhaustion dragged at her limbs. Her pulse slowed. Her vision tunneled. She needed caffeine. She needed sleep. She needed an hour without someone trying to break her cover. Instead, a shadow fell across her table. She didn't look up, but every nerve in her body stood at attention. The nearby chatter died instantly, like someone had pressed mute. Then a voice, smug, loud, poisonous, cut the air. Well. Riker's fist would soon smash into that table, silverware jumping as every sailor in the room froze. The moment the mask slipped, the moment she saw the real monster underneath the uniform. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. The voice above her was pure arrogance, distilled to weapon grade. She looked up. Commander Riker stood over her, flanked by trembling lieutenants who laughed only when he wanted them to laugh. But Riker wasn't laughing now. His eyes were cold, dead sharks drifting in blue water. He shifted course, ignoring the officer buffet line entirely, and walked straight toward her wobbly little table. "Didn't expect to see you still around," Riker announced, loud enough for half the dining hall to turn. She kept her tone flat. "Still around, sir. I heard you were in the control room early." Riker yanked out the metal chair and sat without waiting. He leaned in, elbows planted, breath peppermint and aggression. 0500, before authorized hours. Running? Diagnostics? I believe you told Chief Klein? "Diagnostics run better with light traffic," she recited calmly. "Funny," Riker smiled. "Tight, dead. I don't remember requesting diagnostics at 0500. The request came through the automated ticketing system." Riker barked a laugh, sharp and humiliating. "Let me tell you something about automated systems, sweetheart. My problem isn't the software. My problem is unauthorized personnel touching sensitive consoles and pretending they're doing their jobs." "I'm not hiding, Commander." "No?" His voice dropped to a whisper, close enough that her pulse cooled. "You're just sitting here, eating oatmeal, like you didn't violate about 6 federal protocols this morning." He leaned closer, too close. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to finish breakfast, then go pack your things." "Is that an order, sir?" "That," Riker hissed, "is a promise. Because I just spoke to the base commander. Your contract is terminated, effective immediately." He rose to his full, looming height. "You have 1 hour to be off my base," he announced to the silent room. "Or you leave in handcuffs." He checked his watch. "Actually, why wait? If you're lucky, we won't press federal charges for attempted data breach." Her reply came steady, controlled, a scalpel disguised as a sentence. "I haven't breached any data, Commander, and unless you have a warrant, you can't." "Chief Klein says otherwise," Riker snapped. "He called it in. Smart man, loyal man." She exhaled slowly. "Disappointing," she murmured, "but not surprising." Then she raised her voice just enough for his lieutenants to hear. "Then Chief Klein should present his evidence through proper channels, not through rumors and intimidation." Riker's face darkened. A vein pulsed at his temple. "You think you can lawyer your way out of this? You think regulations matter when you've been caught red-handed?" She met his stare. Held it. Silence spread, heavy, suffocating, until even the cooks stopped moving. "With all due respect, Admiral," she said, emphasizing the rank on purpose, "if you're going to make accusations that end careers, you should probably have your facts straight first." Sirens would scream soon, MPs diving for cover, Riker shouting orders he no longer controlled, and her thumb finally pressing the hidden trigger on that matte black watch. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. "My facts are straight," Riker spat. "You were in a restricted system, unauthorized time, unauthorized access." Her tone stayed even, surgical. "System access logs aren't classified, sir. They're administrative records. Anyone with a basic secret clearance can view them. Time of day doesn't change the classification." Riker slammed his hand on the table. The crack tore through the diaphragm like a gunshot. Conversations died. Forks froze midair. "You're done," he growled. "I'm calling security. You'll be detained pending a counterintelligence investigation." He ripped his radio from his belt and keyed the mic hard enough to bend metal. "Base security. This is Admiral Riker. I need a detention team at the enlisted DFAC immediately. Contractor violating Level 4 protocols. Over." The radio answered, tinny and obedient. "Copy, Admiral. Team en route. ETA 2 mics." She didn't run, didn't argue, didn't even breathe differently. Just sat there, staring at her gray oatmeal, her lungs moving in that quiet, deadly rhythm. Inhale for 4, hold for 4. Exhale for 4, hold for 4. 3 minutes later, the doors exploded open. 4 MPs surged in. Body armor, sidearms, the full intimidation package built to terrify 19-year-olds into compliance. The senior MP snapped a salute. "This contractor accessed classified systems without authorization," Riker barked, loud enough to stain her reputation permanently. "Detain, isolate, process." "Yes, sir." The MP turned to her, hand drifting to his holster. "Ma'am, stand up slowly. Keep your hands visible." She complied. No tension, no fight, just quiet acceptance. 300 sailors watched in total silence, the kind of silence people remember years later. This would be the base's new legend by lunchtime, the uppity contractor who finally got what was coming. "Hands behind your back, please." She turned, calm as a prayer. Plastic zip ties cinched around her wrists, tight enough to bruise, not tight enough to cripple. "Do you have any weapons or contraband on your person?" "No." "We're going to search you anyway." "Of course." A female MP stepped in for the pat-down. They took everything. Her pockets emptied, her tablet seized, her ID badge removed, her phone bagged and tagged, but the watch stayed on her wrist. No one even glanced at it. Why would they? It was just another tactical timepiece, the kind half the base wore. To them, it was a clock. To her, it was a detonator. Sirens would scream. MPs would scatter, and Riker, for the first time in his career, would understand he'd never had control at all. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. "Where are we taking her, sir?" the MP asked. Riker didn't hesitate. "Holding facility, cell 3. "Sir, cell 3 is for criminal detainees, high-risk flight risks." Riker snapped. "Did I stutter, Sergeant?" "No, sir." And just like that, they marched her out into the open, the walk of shame. Past morning PT formations, past officers pretending not to stare, past sailors elbowing each other like kids at a carnival show. Someone raised a phone. One click. By noon, that photo would be on Reddit with a caption dripping sarcasm. The holding facility squatted near the fence line like a forgotten bunker. Inside, industrial pine cleaner fought a losing war against old sweat and older fear. Cell 3 waited, 8 feet by 10, concrete walls, a metal bench, a lidless steel toilet. A barred window let in a taunting sliver of blue. They cut the zip ties. The door slammed. The lock echoed like a gavel. She sat on the bench, head against the freezing wall. Anyone else would call this the near fall, the moment the hero gets captured, outplayed, boxed in. But she knew the truth. This wasn't defeat. This was positioning. She glanced at her wrist. 14:37 hours, 23 minutes until her handler in D.C. noticed she'd missed her scheduled safety check-in. 63 minutes until her dead man's switch, buried 3 months ago in the base mainframe, executed automatically. And in roughly 2 hours, Admiral Riker would learn the difference between authority and power. She closed her eyes. 4 in. Hold 4. 4 out. Hold 4. A jet screamed overhead, rattling the ceiling. Routine training flight. A reminder of what real stakes looked like. Pilots trusting the system to keep them alive. The lock clicked. The door groaned open. Commander Brooks stepped inside. Not angry. Not victorious. Just exhausted. The kind of exhaustion born from choosing the wrong hill to die on. He held a manila folder like it was body armor. "I need to ask you some questions," Brooks said, voice flat. She didn't open her eyes. "Am I being charged with something, Commander?" "That depends on your answers." He sat at the far edge of the bench. "What were you doing in the control room at 0500? "System diagnostics." "Why at 0500? "Light traffic, cleaner performance data, less chance of disrupting ops." Brooks tapped the folder. "You accessed user authentication logs. That's not diagnostics." Her voice stayed calm. "Surgical. That is part of diagnostics. You can't verify the integrity of the pipe if you don't know who's drinking from it." "Not according to Chief Klein." "Then Chief Klein is mistaken about my authorization, or he's scared." Brooks finally opened the folder. Printouts spilled across the bench, logs, timestamps, IP traces. It looked damning. It was meant to look damning. And he had no idea he was holding evidence from a crime someone else committed. Sirens would wail, careers would burn, and the man at the top would learn his empire was made of paper. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Brooks exhaled, spreading the printouts across the metal bench like he was laying out a crime scene. These logs show you specifically targeting files connected to Admiral Riker's office, he said, voice heavy. You were hunting him. She opened her eyes, locking onto his. The logs show anomalous access patterns. She corrected. Those patterns just happened to originate from his office. And you didn't think to report this through proper channels? She stepped closer, calm, controlled. I was gathering evidence to determine if there was anything to report. You don't accuse a base commander of treason based on a hunch. You bring proof. That's not your job, she snapped. Actually, it is. My contract requires I report security vulnerabilities, and right now, the biggest vulnerability on this base is sitting in the Admiral's chair. Brooks rose to his feet, defensive, cornered. Accessing an Admiral's files isn't reporting vulnerabilities. It's espionage. I didn't access his files, Commander. She stood too, their shadows merging in the dim cell light. She whispered, I reviewed logs showing someone used Admiral Riker's top-secret credentials to enter the classified targeting database at 0300. Brooks froze. The blood drained from his cheeks. Explain, he demanded. Someone logged in remotely, she said. They used Riker's authentication key. They pulled sensitive data. Then they logged out. And here's the part you're not going to like. She leaned in, her voice ablade. At 0300, Riker was in his quarters. Checked the gate logs myself. He never left. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. So either your admiral is selling secrets from his bedroom, or someone else has the keys to the kingdom. The temperature in the cell seemed to drop 10 degrees. Brooks stared at her, really stared, as the certainty in his eyes faltered. His world, the hierarchy he lived and died by, was unraveling. You're saying someone hacked his account? He muttered, no longer sure of anything. She shook her head slowly. I'm saying someone used his credentials. Whether it was him, someone he trusts, or someone who cloned his key? I can't determine that from logs alone. I need level 5 access to the server core. Brooks looked down at the papers trembling slightly in his hands. Cold printouts. Hard truth. This wasn't insubordination. It wasn't a rogue contractor. It was the kind of breach that destroys commands and triggers congressional hearings. I'll need to verify this, he said at last, closing the folder like it weighed 100 pounds. Of course. He reached the door, then hesitated. His voice softened. Who are you, really? She offered a faint, almost kind smile. Still just a technical consultant, Commander. Right. He didn't believe her, not for a second, but he wasn't about to ignore a fire because he disliked the messenger. Stay here, he ordered. She nodded. Not going anywhere. The steel door slammed shut, lock engaged, clack, thud. She was alone again. She checked her watch, 15:30 hours. The countdown had begun. Alarms blared. Officers shouted, and as the red lights strobed across the control room, every pair of eyes locked onto the exposed scar on her arm, the mark no contractor should ever have. But to understand why this moment shattered the base, we have to go back. In 7 minutes, her missed safety check would flip from a yellow flag to a red alert in DC. In 67 minutes, the digital deadbolt she'd buried in the system would seal the base's external comms shut. The watch pressed heavy on her wrist. A quiet threat, a promise. 3 pounds of pressure to activate, 3 months of discipline keeping her from doing it. Protocol whispered, do not engage. Instinct whispered louder, prepare. She breathed, slow, steady. Outside, the base thundered with its daily rhythm. Jets screaming overhead, trucks grinding across the tarmac, the endless churn of orders and routine. Inside the concrete box of Cell 3, a woman with no official existence counted down to detonation. 1,600 hours arrived with the cold precision of arithmetic. Across the continent, in a windowless vault at Fort Meade, a red indicator blinked alive. An encrypted alert fired across the Pentagon's nervous system and landed on a desk belonging to a man who outranked admirals without ever wearing a uniform. 10 minutes later, Cell 3's door exploded open. Lieutenant Hayes stood there, 2 MPs flanking him. Gone was the swagger. Gone was the smirk. In its place, panic. "You," Hayes barked. "Come with us." She rose slowly. "Am I being charged?" "The Admiral wants to talk to you. Now." No restraints this time. Fear had made them sloppy. They marched her through hallways washed in red emergency light. Personnel flattened themselves against the walls, whispering as she passed. Is it a drill? Is it an attack? Is it real? The control room was chaos. Riker stalked in circles like a cornered predator. Brooks hovered near the main console, ghost pale. Chief Klein typed like his fingers were on fire. Officers formed a tense semicircle around the central monitor, where cascading red error messages tumbled like a waterfall. Riker spun when she entered. His face was a storm barely contained. "What did you do?" he roared, voice cracking under the strain. Before she could speak, an MP shoved her forward, too rough, too eager. His grip snagged her sleeve. Rip. The gray fabric tore. Her sleeve slid up her arm, and the room went silent. The jagged shrapnel scar, the one she'd earned overseas, the one she was never supposed to show, caught the red light and burned across the room. A civilian contractor should not have that scar. Not unless she'd lived a life none of them were cleared to know. Alarms, red lights, and a room full of men staring at the exposed ink on her arm, the kind no one wears unless they've walked through fire and survived it. But to understand why this shattered the chain of command, we have to go back. The room froze, not because of the scar, because of the ink. Black and gray, needle sharp. A trident crossed with lightning bolts, sitting over a hooded specter. Beneath it, a numeric sequence that didn't match any birthday, any personnel file, any ordinary life. The silence turned reverent, heavy, predatory. Master Chief Garrett saw it first. His breath caught, his hand moving instinctively to where his dog tags used to hang. "Holy hell," Garrett whispered. The words struck the room like a match. Hayes blinked, confused. "What is it?" Garrett stepped forward, voice trembling. "That's a JSOC operator mark. Task Force insignia. I've seen it twice in 43 years. Chief Klein leaned in, glasses sliding down his nose. "Explain." "It means she's not a contractor," Garrett said. "She's Tier 1, Joint Special Operations Command. The kind of operator who officially doesn't exist." Brooks moved closer, studying the worn lines in her skin, the healed trauma around the ink. The scar tissue, it's old. This wasn't done in a mall shop. This is lived in. Riker's face twitched through disbelief, anger, denial. An emotional slot machine stuck on meltdown. "That proves nothing," he barked. "Anyone can get a tattoo, some drunk sailor." "Not that one, sir," Garrett said softly. "You wear that without earning it, you don't leave the bar alive." She pulled the sleeve down, smooth and unhurried, a queen laying her final card. "You wanted proof, Admiral," she murmured. "There it is." "It's not proof," Riker snapped, voice cracking. "It's ink, could be fake, could be stolen valor. Then verify it." She reached into her chest pocket, slow, deliberate, lethal in its confidence. Every officer tensed. Riker's hand hovered near his holster. She removed a card. Black. Crimson border. A holographic eagle clutching a lightning bolt shimmering under the control room lights. A serial number etched in silver, the kind of identifier you only see deep inside the Pentagon. "Pentagon Access Authorization," she said, letting the words carry. "Joint Special Operations Command. The serial number on this card matches the unit designation on my arm." She held it out like a courtroom exhibit, calm, steady, unbreakable. "Cross-reference them, Admiral. Your own security system will confirm it." The video played on every screen, her face bloodied, calm, hauling a wounded operator through gunfire in Aleppo, and Riker felt the room tilt beneath him. But to understand why an entire command froze in fear, we have to go back. She extended the black card toward Chief Klein, steady as stone. Klein took it with trembling fingers. He glanced at Riker. A short, panicked nod gave him permission. He slid the card into the console reader. Beep. Processing. The pause was too long. The system wasn't checking the base network anymore. It was reaching into DC, into the Pentagon, into places where files don't have names, only numbers. Then the screen flashed green. Identity confirmed. Name Commander Elara Vance, affiliation JSOC Special Access Program, Sovereign Ghost, status active, clearance TS Psi Yankee White. The room stopped breathing. Then a second window appeared. Eyes only, priority 1. She said, "Play it." The footage erupted across the wall monitors. High-definition helmet cam, echoing gunfire, stone exploding into dust. A timestamp burned across the top. Aleppo, Syria, 2 years ago. In the chaos, a woman in full kit sprinted into view, dragging a screaming operator behind cover with one arm while firing an MK-18 with the other. Her face, younger, bloodier, unmistakable. Gasps rippled through the room. Then a third file opened automatically. A scanned document slashed with a diagonal black line. Certificate of death. Name Vance Elara J. Status Kia. IED detonation location Sector 4, Syria. Brooks stared at her, his voice cracking under the weight of reality. You're supposed to be dead. She didn't blink. I was. Officially. Nothing more. No explanation. In the world she came from, death was just paperwork. Chief Klein, pale and sweating, opened a submenu. His eyes widened as he read the metadata. Sir? He whispered to Riker. Her clearance outranks every officer on this base. It outranks the Pacific Fleet Commander. You need Pentagon authorization just to read the table of contents. The room felt smaller, hotter. Riker's jaw clenched. And Elara Vance, the woman he tried to humiliate, arrest, bury, stood there watching him crumble, her expression unreadable. The screen bled red. Riker staggered back, his whole world folding in on itself. But to understand why a decorated admiral suddenly looked like a hunted man, we have to go back. His fingers dug into the console, knuckles bone white, breath shallow. He stared at the data, but he wasn't seeing numbers. He was watching his legacy burn. This is impossible, Riker hissed. JSOC doesn't run domestic ops without briefing command. There are protocols. There is chain of command. She stepped closer, her shadow swallowing his. There are, she said, her voice low, sharp. And one of those protocols activates when corruption reaches the top, when oversight can't be trusted, when young men die on missions because someone here is selling their coordinates. Ping. The main screen refreshed. Her dead man's switch had finished its sweep. Lines of data thundered down the monitors. Access logs, transfer trails, biometric stamps, each one coded green, yellow, or red. And the red spread like blood. Every crimson entry pointed to a single profile. Admiral Richard Riker. Riker's booming voice collapsed into a thin, desperate panic. It's fake. Someone planted this. A frame job. Klein stepped forward, his voice hollow, stripped of emotion. Sir, the entries include fingerprint scans, retinal confirmation. They came from your workstation, in your private quarters. These aren't password breaches. These are biological verifications. A new window opened automatically. Real-time correlation analysis. The system began matching every time Riker accessed sensitive patrol routes with the aftermath of those missions. Match found. Match found. The percentage climbed. 70, 83, 93. Klein swallowed hard. Sir, every time you access certain routes, the patrol was hit within 72 hours. Ambushes, IEDs, compromised landing zones. There's no statistical way this is coincidence. Brooks' hand drifted to his holster. He didn't draw, but the retention strap snapped open. Admiral, Brooks said, his voice iron, I need you to step away from the console. Riker shook his head like a man drowning, searching for air. You're choosing fabricated data over 30 years of service? I built this place. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. You had 30 years, Elara Vance said, each word a scalpel. You built a career. You earned respect. A long beat. A breath that cut the room in half. And then you threw it away. The room shook under the roar of descending rotors, 4 black helicopters dropping fast, bringing generals who did not make casual visits. But to understand why they were here, we have to go back. She tapped her tablet once, and the main screen filled with a bold header. Nexus Strategic Solutions. Riker's voice cracked. I never. She cut him off, cold and final. Don't lie, Rick. It's over. A swipe, and his entire criminal empire unfolded like a confession. 8 months of transfers to a private military contractor. Every classified file you touched showed up as offshore deposits. Cayman accounts, shell corporations. Perfect timing, perfect symmetry. Bank records glowed on the screen. Wire transfers, paper trails. The truth sharpened into a blade. Then, that sound. Thump, 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 thump. A low vibration rolled under their feet, rattling ceiling tiles. Every head snapped toward the reinforced windows. 4 unmarked Blackhawks dropped toward the helipad, formation tight, deliberate, predatory. Their rotor wash kicked up debris like a hurricane. Hayes whispered, "What the hell?" Riker went pale. "Who did you call?" Vance didn't flinch. "I didn't call anyone. Protocol did." She watched the birds land, calm as a surgeon. "When I missed my 1600 check-in, the system flagged a compromised asset. That triggers automatic extraction and containment." The helicopter doors slid open. 4 stars gleamed in the sunlight. Generals, not visitors, not spectators. Executioners. Riker spun back toward her, desperation flooding his voice. "We have 45 minutes before the backup power fails." Brooks frowned. "Explain." "You triggered a level 5 lockdown," Riker shouted. "The generators can't sustain the server farm this long. When they crash, the chain of custody breaks. Your evidence becomes corrupted. No admissible trail." Vance turned to Klein. "Confirm." Klein's fingers flew, sweat beading on his forehead. "Back up at 63%. Projected shutdown in 42 minutes. She nodded once. "Then we finish this now." Her gaze swept the room and landed on Hayes. The lieutenant froze, small, cornered, his bravado gone. "Lieutenant Hayes," she said, her voice steady, clinical. He swallowed. "Ma'am, you spent 3 months telling anyone who'd listen that I didn't belong here, that I was incompetent, a waste of space." Hayes opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Eyes darting, pulse hammering, the truth swallowing him whole. And for the first time in his life, the boy who mocked a ghost realized he'd never been in the presence of a contractor. He'd been standing next to a storm. The room froze, the truth sharpening into a blade aimed at the highest ranks of American power. But to understand why everything was about to explode, we have to go back. "Now," she pointed at the terminal, her voice low, commanding. "I need you to prove yourself wrong." Hayes blinked. "Me? Yes. Pull the detailed access logs. Every file touch, every transfer, every authentication. You're going to be the one who shows this room who really betrayed this base." The words hit him like a strike to the chest. Shame, disbelief, realization, all of it flickered across his face. "Why me?" he whispered. She answered softly, yet the whole room felt it. "Because you're good at your job, Lieutenant. Because you follow protocols. And because when this ends, I want history to show that the people who doubted me were the ones who exposed the truth." Hayes glanced at Riker, the man he worshipped. Then at the money trails glowing red. Then back at Vance. He swallowed hard. "Yes, ma'am." He stepped forward, fingers flying, screens populating, cross-referencing, building a timeline no one had dared piece together. Silence filled the room. 41 minutes remaining. "Got something?" Hayes asked, voice cracking. A single file appeared. One login. One slip. "Access pattern from Admiral Riker's credentials," Hayes read. 3 days ago. "But, ma'am?" He turned, eyes wide, horrified. The IP address for this login didn't come from the Admiral's office, and it didn't come from his home. Riker seized the opening. "See? I told you. I told all of you." "No, sir," Hayes cut in, deadly calm. "It came from a mobile device." He pointed across the room. "It came from the phone currently sitting in Commander Brooks's pocket." The floor dropped out of the control room. Every head turned. Brooks froze. His hand twitched near his pocket, guilty before he spoke. "That's absurd," Brooks gasped. I handed my phone to security when lockdown started. It's been in the Faraday cage for an hour." "Then explain the IP trace," Hayes shouted. "Wait," Vance said. Her voice cut through everything, sharp, steady, surgical. "Zoom in on the timestamp, Lieutenant." Hayes magnified the log. 314 hours. User admin override R7. Device redacted. But more data lurked underneath. "There's a secondary pattern," Vance murmured. "Another user, high-level privileges, accessing the same files within minutes of Riker's credentials. Sometimes before, sometimes after." The implication hit like a hammer. "Like they were coordinating," she said. "One opening the door, the other walking through." "Who?" Riker demanded, clawing for salvation. Hayes decrypted the deep layer signature. His hands shook as the name appeared in white on black. General A. Corbin. Hayes went ghost pale. "General Corbin? He's Pentagon. He signs the budget for this entire installation." Vance didn't move, didn't blink. But her jaw tightened, a single muscle flexing like a fault line ready to break. And for the first time, everyone in the room understood. They weren't dealing with a rogue admiral. They were staring into the mouth of a conspiracy big enough to swallow the nation whole. Her world was burning, the truth finally rising from the ashes. A Pentagon general saluting a woman everyone on that base thought was nobody. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. General Corbin's name glowed on the screen, a silent bomb waiting to detonate. She spoke first, her voice a low, controlled ember. "General Corbin authorized this operation. He suggested using a deceased operator for deep cover. He recommended me." The implications spread through the room like nerve gas. Garrett rasped, "He knew you'd be investigating. He knew you'd chase Riker. He thought he could control the whole thing from inside, use you to bury him." Hayes swallowed hard, pulling up deeper logs. "It's worse. General Corbin accessed the intel briefing that sent your convoy into that kill zone 2 years ago. He modified the route 2 hours before you rolled out." Silence. Heavy. Absolute. In that stillness, Vance closed her eyes and saw fire, heard screams, felt shrapnel ripping into her arm. "He tried to kill me, and when that failed, he tried to use me." Brooks whispered, "We need to inform the arriving command," reaching for his radio. "Wait," Vance said, raising a hand. Calm, deadly. "Corbin doesn't know we've connected the dots. If we tip our hand now, he'll vanish under classified protection. We have 38 minutes. Then, the steel doors hissed open. 4 generals stepped inside, not in combat gear. Service-dress blues, immaculate, terrifying. The kind of presence that says, "This is Washington." The lead was a 3-star, silver hair tight, eyes hard as flint. Behind her, 3 more flag officers moved in formation, ribbons flashing under the red emergency lights. Garrett stiffened. He recognized one of them from Panama, back when stars were earned in mud and blood. The lead general scanned the room. Riker wilted under her stare. Brooks froze. Hayes tried to melt into his chair. Then her gaze locked onto Vance. The entire room held its breath. Rank disappeared. Protocol disappeared. Every man and woman in that control room felt the world tilt, waiting to see who bowed to whom. The general lifted her hand. A razor-sharp salute. The soundless explosion hit harder than any bomb. Gasps erupted. Someone dropped a tablet, the clatter echoing like a gunshot. Hayes' mouth fell open. His mind shattered. A 3-star general saluting a contractor. Klein leaned back as if struck by a physical force. Brooks froze mid-motion, forgetting what he'd even reached for. And in that suspended moment, the truth finally snapped into focus. Elara Vance wasn't just cleared. She outranked the room. Every last one of them. The room froze, the truth finally crushing every lie. Generals saluting a woman they all thought was disposable. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Riker made a sound, not a word, just air leaking from a collapsing ego. The noise of a man watching his universe die. General Hartwick's voice cut through the silence. "Commander Vance, welcome back, ma'am." 3 more generals snapped to attention. Salutes, sharp as blades. Respect given only to an equal, or a legend. Vance returned the salute. Everything shifted, her posture, her presence. The disguise she'd worn for 3 months evaporated, replaced by the steel of an officer who had bled for her country, buried friends overseas, and survived choices that carved scars deeper than ink. "General Hartwick," Vance said. Her voice settled into command. "Thank you for the response time." "We've been monitoring since your check-in lapse," Hartwick replied. "When the lockdown triggered, we mobilized immediately." Then her eyes slid to Riker. The temperature seemed to drop. His spine wilted. "Admiral Conrad Riker," Hartwick said, every syllable a sentencing hammer. "You are under arrest for violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, unauthorized disclosure of classified information, conspiracy to commit espionage, conduct unbecoming." Riker broke. "This is fabricated, all of it." A 2-star general stepped forward, voice calm, almost bored. The evidence was compiled by one of our most decorated operators. 3 months of surveillance, every file pull, every transfer, preserved on secure systems you didn't even know existed. Hayes stared at Vance, wide-eyed. The contractor he mocked, the woman he doubted. None of it had been true, and all of it had been true. "You were JSOC this whole time?" Hayes whispered. Vance turned to him, steady, unflinching. No smile, no gloat. "Lieutenant Hayes," she said softly. "Look at the screen. We're not done yet. Scroll down to General Corbin's file." Hayes swallowed, forcing himself back into motion. "Yes, ma'am," he scrolled. The room braced for impact. Red lights, sirens, a countdown screaming doom. Hartwick turning toward Vance like she's the only steady thing left in the room. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Hayes' voice shook as he read the line that detonated the control room. "General Corbin authorized transfers to the same Cayman accounts Riker used. And ma'am, there's an encrypted text file." Vance didn't blink. "Decrypt it. Override code, sovereign, ghost, actual." Hayes typed, "Enter." The file opened like a blade sliding free. The asset is in place. She suspects Riker. Perfect distraction. Unknown. And when she learns Riker is just the middleman, she won't. Riker takes the fall. The base gets purged. And Vance, well, accidents happen during lockdowns. The room froze. Hearts stopped. Vance turned to Hartwick. He's not just stealing intel, he's scrubbing the board, and we're all on it. Then, the lights flickered, the fans stuttered, and the alarm wailed, deep and merciless. Power failure in 10 seconds. He's cutting the power, Klein shouted. He's trying to kill the evidence. Vance didn't hesitate. Hayes, hard copy. Print everything. Now! Hayes staggered backward, guilt hitting him like a tidal wave. Every rumor I spread, every insult. Ma'am, I... Later, Lieutenant, Vance snapped, calm as a surgeon mid-operation. Right now, you finish those logs. We have 34 minutes before everything dies with the servers. That number, 34, hung in the air like a death sentence. Around them, officers exchanged terrified glances. General Corbin wasn't some rogue lieutenant. He wasn't even a regional commander. He was the architect. The power behind the Pacific Fleet, the kind of man who could end careers with a phone call. General Hartwick didn't flinch, didn't blink. Her expression stayed carved from granite, but her eyes hardened into something lethal, something ready for war. Gunmetal walls, sirens, a 3-star general staring straight into the eyes of a ghost. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Explain, Hartwick ordered, her voice cold enough to freeze marrow. Hayes swallowed hard, but his fingers flew. Here, the dual access pattern, Riker and Corbin moving in sync. Riker opens the file, Corbin downloads it. Riker creates the vulnerability, Corbin exploits it. He pulled up the Syria briefing, and the room stopped moving. This, Hayes whispered, is the modified intelligence update, the one that sent Commander Vance's convoy into a kill zone. Timestamps show General Corbin altered the threat assessment 2 hours before launch. Vance stepped forward, calm as a scalpel. Corbin ran the entire operation. He recruited Riker. He funneled intel through Nexus Strategic Solutions. He blocked internal investigations. A beat, a breath. And when JSOC launched Operation Sovereign Ghost, when you needed a dead operator for deep cover, he recommended me. The room inhaled as one. Shock, horror, understanding. He put me here to catch Riker, she continued, while he stayed insulated. He thought I was his pawn. He miscalculated. Hartwick's voice cut like a blade. Where is Corbin now? Brooks scanned the logs, paling. He left 20 minutes before the protocol triggered. Private charter to DC. Convenient, Hartwick growled. Not convenient, Vance replied. He was warned. Someone in the oversight chain tipped him. Hartwick's jaw twitched, the only sign of the fury she kept buried. We'll deal with that. First, secure Riker. The MPs moved in, precise, silent. Admiral Riker, you have the right to remain silent. Steel cuffs, no leniency, no rank left to hide behind. As they dragged him toward the door, Riker twisted back, his voice cracked, a man begging for the last scrap of dignity. How long, he rasped. How long have you been planning this? Vance stepped into the light, letting him see the scars he helped create. Since Syria, she said. Since I woke in a field hospital and realized someone sold my convoy's location. Since I learned operators don't just die in convenient IED blasts. Her voice lowered, deadly, steady. 2 years, Admiral. 2 years of being dead. 3 months of watching you prove exactly who you are. Riker sagged. The door closed behind him with a final, echoing click. No victory, no celebration, just truth. Vance pulled out her real tablet, military-grade, encrypted, lethal in the right hands. General, she said, projecting a new spiderweb of data. The network is bigger than Riker and Corbin. 16 officers, 6 bases, 4 contractors, 2 sitting congressmen. Corruption mapped like a disease. I documented everything, access patterns, wire transfers, encrypted comms, all of it ready for prosecution. Hartwick studied the list, her expression never changing, but something flickered behind her eyes. Respect or dread. Then she looked up. Commander, Hartwick said quietly, deep cover eats at the soul. You've been under for 3 months. She paused. I need to know, are you still operational? Knit gunmetal walls humming. A 3-star general saluting a woman who was supposed to be dead. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Hartwick's voice softened, just barely. You could step back now. Pentagon desk, Coronado classrooms. You've earned the right to rest. Vance didn't flinch, didn't blink. With respect, ma'am, I step back when every person who sold intel that got operators killed is in prison. Not before. The room stilled. Even the cooling fans seemed to listen. You sent me in as bait once, she continued, steady as stone. It worked. We used Riker's arrest to rattle Corbin. Make him think the investigation stops here. Then we watch the mistakes he makes trying to bury his tracks. Hartwick exhaled slowly. That's a long operation, Commander. Could take months, could take years. I know, Vance said, and I'll do whatever it takes, however long it takes. A grizzled Ranger-tabbed general cracked a thin smile. She's got your stubbornness, Patricia. Hartwick didn't deny it. We'll brief you tomorrow. For tonight, you're officially Commander Vance again. Enjoy it while you can. Yes, ma'am. Dismissed. Vance saluted and turned, exhaustion seeping into her bones now that the adrenaline was fading. Ma'am, permission to speak? She stopped. Master Chief Garrett stepped forward, standing at full attention. The old warhorse who had sensed her truth long before anyone else. Granted, Master Chief. Garrett nodded toward her left arm. The tattoo. The grip on the UAV controller. The breathing pattern. I knew something was off. I knew you weren't a civilian, but I couldn't place it. He hesitated, then spoke with a softness rare for a man carved from battlefields. I served with your father, he said quietly. USS Enterprise, 1998. He had that same stubborn look when he knew he was right. A lump rose in her throat. She forced it down. He taught me well, Master Chief. Garrett nodded. He did, and he'd be proud. Not just that you caught them, but that you didn't become them. Vance gave a small, grateful nod. Then she stepped out into the corridor. The red emergency lights flickered out, replaced by the harsh white glow of normal operations. Lockdown over. Base secure. For now. She walked toward the exit, her breathing finally slowing, until her phone buzzed. One encrypted text. No sender. Unknown. Riker was a pawn. You just knocked over a piece. You haven't seen the board yet. Vance stopped mid-stride. Read it twice. 3 times. She didn't delete it. She didn't reply. She just smiled. Slow, cold, predatory. Game on, she whispered. A 3-star general saluting a woman who was supposed to be dead. A base holding its breath. A traitor running for Washington. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Ma'am. The words stopped her like a hand on the shoulder. Master Chief Garrett stood beneath the blast doors, spine straight, eyes sharp. The suspicion he'd carried for 3 long months was gone. In its place, respect. Heavy, earned, unmistakable. He snapped a salute so clean it could have been carved from steel. I should have seen it sooner, Garrett rumbled, voice shaped by 40 years of salt air and shouted orders. I went through Q course at Bragg in '98. You move like someone who knows what it costs to walk quietly. Vance paused. The adrenaline drain hit her hard now, leaving her brittle, hollowed, fighting not to sway. You served with distinction, Master Chief, she said, her words softer than they'd been all night. Your record speaks for itself. You spotted cracks in my cover weeks ago. You could have exposed me. You didn't. Garrett eased out of the salute, but his posture stayed ramrod straight. If someone hides that deep, he said, they've got reasons, and I trust the tradecraft, even when I don't know the face. His expression warmed, just enough to reveal the man beneath the legend. Welcome home, Commander. She let the words settle, heavy, human. Thank you, Master Chief. Then she walked out. The corridors were thawing now, emergency reds dying into the harsh fluorescent whites of a base trying to remember how to breathe. Doors opened. Personnel emerged. Phones lit up. Whispered questions floated through the air like dust motes. But the looks, those were different. 2 petty officers froze, mid-sentence, following her with wide, stunned eyes. A squadron of pilots went silent, heads turning as she crossed the courtyard. The whisper stream was already alive. The contractor who wasn't. The ghost who outranked an admiral. The operator who came back from the dead. By morning, it would be base folklore. By next week, myth. 1900 hours. Her temporary quarters waited, a concrete shoebox, barely big enough to contain the last 90 days of lies. She locked the door. The deadbolt clicked like a period at the end of a brutal chapter. She sat on the metal bed. Springs groaned under her weight. For the first time since the lockdown began, she didn't check vents, didn't scan shadows, didn't test for hidden cameras. She just breathed. 1, 2, 3. Exactly 60 seconds of stillness. No aliases, no covers, no masks. Just Elara Vance, a woman whose arms still throbbed where shrapnel lived, whose bones ached from years spent in the dark, and who had just toppled men she once saluted. 60 seconds. Then the soldier would return. But for now, just a woman, just breath. A photograph from 2 years ago. A hidden figure with a radio. Someone watching her team drive into the kill zone and smiling. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. 58, 59, 60. Elara Vance snapped her eyes open. The moment of stillness vanished, the walls slamming back into place around her. Ping. Her secure tablet glowed on the desk, that cold blue cybernet hue filling the room. Message 1 of 2. Sender, JSOC Command, General Hartwick. Subject, Cascade Protocol. She opened it. Dry words, brutal implications, immediate revocation of Admiral Riker's clearance, pending court-martial, 24/7 surveillance authorized for General Corbin, institutional audits across 12 Pacific Command facilities, legacy recognition for Operation Sovereign Ghost, approved. The military's immune system was waking up, sweeping through the rot like white blood cells. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Then message 2 arrived. Sender, unknown. Subject, Tower 4 sends regards. Vance frowned. That wasn't a call sign she knew. She tapped the file. An image opened, and her blood turned to ice. A grainy overhead photograph, time-stamped October 14th, 2021, 2 years back. A Syrian compound. Coordinates visible. Her convoy route traced in a jagged red line. But the horror was in the corner. A lone figure on a rooftop. Not Syrian, not militia. The gear was American. Cut, posture, everything. He wasn't fighting. He was observing. Calling in the explosion. Watching her team burn as if it were sport. Someone had taken this photo. Someone had sent it to her. Someone wanted her to understand. Riker was never the enemy. He was just a symptom. A knock hit the door like a hammer. She killed the screen with a swipe, slid the tablet beneath her pillow, and let her fingers drift to the knife taped under the desk. Who is it? Lieutenant Hayes, ma'am. She exhaled, released the blade, and opened the door. Hayes stood there. No swagger, no smirk, just a kid stripped of every illusion he'd ever worn. Eyes red, voice unsteady. Ma'am, I came to apologize. Properly. He stared at his boots, shame rolling off him in waves. I was part of the problem. The jokes, the rumors, the way I treated you. I acted like some high school bully when I swore an oath to serve. You deserved better. Vance leaned against the frame, silent. Not comforting him, not rescuing him. You followed your commanding officer's lead, she said quietly. That's what young officers do when the culture is rotten. Hayes swallowed, looked up, pain tightening his voice. But I still chose to treat you like you didn't belong. Because you weren't one of us. Because you were a contractor. I was wrong. She studied him, saw the shame burning deep. Good. Shame sharpens men. If there's anything I can do to make it right, he whispered. Anything. Vance stepped closer, her voice low, steady, razor sharp. You want to make it right, Lieutenant? Yes, ma'am, anything. A lone figure on a rooftop, a radio in his hand, watching her convoy drive straight into the kill zone and doing nothing to stop it. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Remember this feeling, Vance said, her voice hard as flint. Freeze this moment in your mind. The nausea, the embarrassment, the realization that you were dangerously wrong. She stepped closer, close enough that Hayes had no choice but to meet her eyes. The next time you see someone who doesn't fit your expectations, a janitor, a contractor, a messy intel analyst, look closer instead of dismissing them. Ask questions before you judge. Because the next time you misread an operator, Lieutenant, they might not be on your side. Hayes swallowed, his voice cracking. I won't forget. I promise. That, she said, her tone softening just enough to let humanity slip through the steel, is how you make it right. That is how you become better. Yes, ma'am. He snapped a final salute. Not the nervous salute of a junior officer. This was respect, sharp and reverent. She returned it with effortless, lethal grace. Then Hayes turned and disappeared down the concrete hall, his footsteps echoing like a retreating heartbeat. The steel door clicked shut. Silence swallowed the room. Vance turned back to the tablet. The glow washed her face in ghostly blue, and there it was, the image from Tower 4. That rooftop silhouette. That taunting message, that reminder that Riker was merely the first domino. Someone else had orchestrated the burn. Someone worse, someone still watching. She opened the encrypted reply field, fingers hovering over the glass. Then, slow and deliberate, she typed 4 words. Tomorrow, not tonight, send. The message vanished, scattering through encrypted channels, bouncing across continents, spiraling into the dark. Whoever waited on the other end would see it. They would understand. She'd seen them. She wasn't afraid. She was coming. Vance walked to the narrow window. Outside, Hawaii bled into the Pacific, violent purples, burning orange. Beautiful. Peaceful. A lie. Somewhere on this base, Admiral Riker was staring at the ruins of his legacy. Somewhere in Washington, General Corbin was clutching a glass, wondering if the knock on his door would be federal or military. And somewhere in the darker corners of the world, in Damascus, Dubai, the Urals, someone believed they were safe because they'd ghosted the world for 2 years. They were wrong. Vance stepped away from the window. She was patient. She was relentless. And she was the kind of weapon people like them feared. A weapon with no price, no leash, and no hesitation. She lay back on the squeaky metal bed, eyes tracing the cracks in the ceiling. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. Hold for 4. The rhythm that kept her alive in Syria. The rhythm that kept her from breaking Riker in half. The rhythm that would carry her into the hunt waiting for her at dawn. A lone rooftop silhouette, a radio in his hand, watching her convoy roll straight into the fire, doing nothing, except making sure the blast hit exactly on time. But to understand why this happened, we have to go back. Tomorrow would bring new briefings, new targets, new identities she'd have to wear like borrowed skin, new shadows to chase down dark corridors where rank didn't matter, only truth. But tonight belonged to her. A jagged truth, a messy truth, but hers. She glanced at her watch. 2,200 hours. In 10 hours, she'd stand before General Hartwick and receive orders that would bury technical consultant Jane Doe forever. 11 hours, and she'd become someone else. Another legend stitched together from lies, ready to move through the world unseen. But for this one night, in the quiet hum of the barracks, she was Commander Elara Vance. A woman who had served. A woman who had bled. A woman who had won. Thousands of miles away, at Fort Bragg, the U.S. SOC Memorial Wall glowed beneath floodlights. It listed every operator lost in the shadows. 2 years ago, her name had been carved into limestone. Next week, a stonemason would arrive. He wouldn't erase her. He'd add a single mark, an asterisk, nothing more. Status, return to active service. Classification, restricted. Operators would see it, nod, and raise a glass in the team room. A ghost had walked out of her own grave. Proof that sometimes death is just another deployment. Justice isn't loud. It doesn't need lights or speeches. It moves in silence through the spaces between heartbeats. It breathes in 4-count rhythms learned under fire. It wears any mask required to get close enough to strike. Justice never stops, never rests, never quits until every inch of rot is burned away, until every operator betrayed by a suit's greed is finally accounted for. Until the system is worthy of the warriors who die protecting it. They mocked her rank. They dismissed her gender. They forgot the one truth carved into the marrow of warfare. You don't outrank the truth. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead. Orion, Cassiopeia, the Southern Cross, ancient, unmoving, indifferent to the chaos beneath them. Commander Vance lay back, eyes closing, breath steady. Tomorrow, there were new ghosts to hunt. The man on that rooftop was waiting. But tonight, the silence was enough.